Today on the 3-Point Blitz, it's the final show before the 2026 NFL Draft and the first official show of the NBA playoffs. CJ McCollum rises as ATL's unlikely hero in a Game 2 comeback. LeBron James shows he still has some juice in the tank with a shocking Game 1 dominant performance. Dexter Lawrence leaves Big Blue for the Cincinnati Zebra Stripes. And one last preview of the 2026 NFL Draft before it happens for real. All today on episode 56 of the 3-Point Blitz.
Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Steves! Come to my channel, you know the deal, yo boy, always keeps things real. Think and slate, dropping unrealistic mags, 2K takes for the clip. Even though cats like that get views closer to the millie, never hear me preach, LeBron to Philly. Before you watch the Eagles all the way through the early 22, authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal, yo boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way, sports content for the reals that feel the day.
Good afternoon, folks. It is noon Eastern Standard Time after 1 week, a 1 week deal where we did this at 4 p.m. We're back at its regular time slot at noon after a brief deliberation on whether or not to switch it to 4 p.m. on a regular basis. But with that being said, the 3-Point Blitz is back, and that means we got a lot to talk about, folks. As I just said in the preview, we got the NFL Draft coming up in a few days. The NBA playoffs have officially begun. All 8 series have started, and now we're going to kick this thing off like we usually do with the rant of the week. So I did upload this as a YouTube short, but for those who didn't see, what happened was I saw a graphic from BetMGM. It was a list of the best quarterback drafted in each round. So with that, and here's their list. You'll see why real quickly. This isn't exactly the most on par on the up and up list. So here it is. You see Patrick Mahomes, first quarterback, best in the first round. Okay, fair enough. It'd be a close nod between him, Peyton Manning. Drew Brees, the best taken in the second round. Okay, that makes a ton of sense. Russell Wilson, third round as of now. Okay, I get it. Dak, best fourth rounder. All right, that's fair enough. But then look at the fifth. Shedeur Sanders off one season with a higher INT to TD ratio, the best fifth rounder taken? Wait a second. Hold up. Nah. That already alone is already but moving right along, get back to the fifth rounder and what's wrong with that in a second. Best sixth rounder, Tom Brady, no brainer, right choice. Seventh round, Brock Purdy, the closest competitor would be Rich Gannon, who was a former NFL MVP for the 2002 regular season, started for the Raiders in Super Bowl 37. He was the QB the last time the Raiders were actually a good team. So you could maybe argue Rich Gannon. And then undrafted Tony Romo. Now, at first that might make sense, but if you can read the text, I think Kurt Warner has something to say about that one, folks. Because, look, don't get me wrong. This is not any Cowboy hate or any of that. Tony Romo was a good quarterback. And for an undrafted quarterback that started as a walk-on with the Cowboys, I think was on the practice squad, then worked his way up the depth chart, he ended up having a really good career. Having a few Pro Bowl nods, starting in numerous playoff games. But so that is a really good career. Now, if it weren't for Kurt Warner being undrafted, I would consider Romo the best undrafted quarterback of all time. But Kurt Warner, who was also undrafted, had a regular season MVP, a Super Bowl MVP, and 3 total Super Bowl starts. So I'd say Kurt Warner has the better track record of being clutch in big games than Tony Romo. And that's why I would lean toward Kurt Warner being the best undrafted quarterback. So I get it, Tony Romo, very good career for an undrafted quarterback, but the difference between a legend and a Hall of Famer and a good quarterback is performance in big games, and that was often Tony Romo's weak point. And that's why I give Warner the nod for best undrafted. Now, The 5th rounder, that's a joke. And look, I've been a neutral when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. I haven't really taken sides, but this is absolutely ridiculous. I think in this one, Marky Mark, a.k.a. Mark Brunell, would like to have a word with them. Because you're talking Mark Brunell, who played a full NFL career, had 3 Pro Bowl nods, had his best years with the Jaguars, led the Jaguars to 2 AFC championship games. Granted, as his career went along, he started to become a backup. He technically won a Super Bowl with the Saints as Drew Brees' backup. Then I think he was the Jets' backup for a year and then retired. But Mark Brunell actually has played a full career, actually starred in a couple conference championship games and had 3 Pro Bowl nods. This being with an expansion Jacksonville Jaguars, mind you, when most expansion teams struggle to get off the ground in any sport, period. Mark Brunell, by the Jaguars' second year, had them in the AFC Championship game and had them back at that stage a few seasons later. So I'd say when it comes to 5th rounders, Mark Brunell's the no-brainer choice. Shedeur, if he actually plays a full career and does pretty solid, he might get some consideration, but that remains to be seen. He is definitely, based off his rookie season, not the best 5th rounder taken. And even if Shedeur did have a good rookie season, even if he did, he still wouldn't put him over Mark Brunell, who's had a full career. So, and BetMGM, I do like some of their list, and I feel like this is what I'd say is discussion bait. I feel like sometimes these companies, when they put together these lists, they strategically set up a few questionable choices just to get people talking, just to get a good debate going in the comment section. Some call it clickbait. I call it discussion bait. So, look, if they want to do that, I understand the business side of it. You're trying to get traffic to your page, so you try to throw out kind of like a troll way, throw out some controversial takes to get people talking. But coming from my point of view, nah, man. That just, Shedeur Sanders, that don't even make no sense. Tony Romo won. I get it. I can at least respect that one, but I still say Kurt Warner's the best undrafted. But that'll be it for the rant of the week. I've covered all I wanted to say on this one. And now, speaking of to the state of Texas, we actually have 2 players, one from the Houston Texans, one from the Cowboys, who received big extensions in the past couple days. We know Willie Anderson Jr. received a big extension for the Houston Texans. And don't get me wrong, he's one of the best pass rusher, a top 5 pass rusher in the NFL currently. He won Defensive Rookie of the Year. He had an All-Pro honor in 2025 and played a key role in that Texans defense. So it is for him, I don't blame Will. Hey, good for Willie Anderson Jr. that he's getting paid for his work. And then Brandon Aubrey, who, let's face it, you could argue that he was the real MVP of the Cowboys over Dak last season, gets an extension, which is understandably so. Brandon Aubrey currently is looking like the best kicker since Adam Vinatieri came along when he was a young kicker. So I get that those guys are getting extensions. They had really good seasons for their respective teams. But this goes back to, and shout out to Mitch, Football Talk with Bo and James Strong from Steel by the Lake podcast. We talked about this on Sunday, that the more people get record extensions, the more over time the market raises where, okay, Will Anderson Jr. now set the bar for an extension. Now Brandon Aubrey set the standard for a kicker. Now, it's more likely that a pass rusher could get the record-breaking mass extension more so than a kicker. That is true, but and here's the problem in the long haul, as we discussed. While it's great for the players' pocketbooks, and they're getting their hard work, it's rewarding their hard work, that they get credit for, but in the long haul, what happens is teams keep overpaying for these players and they take up a large chunk of the salary cap, and that limits the team's ability to put talent around them. Look at what's happened with Dak Prescott when he got that huge extension. Now, in the short term, when he got that extension, I believe 2021, you had 3 seasons the Cowboys made it to the playoffs, won the NFC East 2 of those 3 years, but when 2024 free agency came calling, the Cowboys lost a lot of their depth, and they went from a strong regular season team and dark horse playoff contender who never maximized that potential to now just being a mediocre team. So that all that big extension they gave Dak, it's great for his pocketbook, but it hurt their team in the long haul. And you got to wonder with guys like Willie Anderson Jr., if you got to wonder a few years from now, the Texans still have a great defense. And that defense, as long as they stay healthy, is still going to give them a chance in 2026. Especially if, say, the Jaguars regress with a harder schedule. That opens the door for the Texans to potentially win the AFC South. But in the long haul, you got Willie Anderson Jr. locked up in a big contract. Is it going to be a similar situation to what happened with Dak with the Cowboys or Jordan Love with the Packers, where you give these players these big contracts, but it limits your team's ability to put depth around them? One of the things about Tom Brady that made him so successful, beside the Bill Belichick Spygate and Deflategate, was he was willing to take temporary pay cuts to help the team so they can afford to sign the right players to put around him. That was one of the unique elements that Brady had, the unique characteristic that helped that team be successful, along with all the other aspects too. But a lot of these players that take these mass extensions, a lot of them don't really win a whole lot of Super Bowls. So on one hand, Willie Anderson Jr. and Brandon Aubrey, from an individual standpoint, they're getting paid for their contributions, and for them, I'm sure they're feeling great about it. But also at the same time, for the team, in the long term, it can limit your team's ability to put talent around you. So it's just really a matter of, we got to see how this pays off. So, hey, man, but you know how that's the way the football game is now. Teams fluctuate. They increase this standard for highest paid edge rusher, highest paid quarterback, or highest paid tight end. It fluctuates. We saw Tyler Lindenbaum also too. Let's not forget him got a big extension. So that's just the way it is. And hey, sometimes, taking up a lot of space in the salary cap, that's just the consequence that comes along with it in the long term. But we'll have to see how this ends up playing off for the Cowboys and the Texans, which for the Cowboys, I think this is going to come back to hurt them in the long haul, with all due respect to Brandon Aubrey, because you still need help on your defense. That's the main position the Cowboys got to focus on. And now you got a huge contract with a kicker who's a really good kicker and the best kicker in the NFL currently. But still, in the long haul, when you got to build up that defense, how's this going to impact the salary? You already got Dak's big contract. Now you got Brandon Aubrey taking a big contract too. We already saw how the Dak contract hurt them in 2024 free agency and caused their defense to regress. That could be trouble for the Cowboys in the long term, but typical Jerry Jones move. But speaking of moves in the NFC East, we got something else going on too. The Giants traded Dexter Lawrence to the Cincinnati Bengals, and in return, they're going to get, now they got the 5th and the 10th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft's first round. Now, this is good. Now, for the Giants, this opens up a window of opportunities for them in terms of what they do. And for the Bengals, I'll start with the Bengals. The good news and bad news. The bad news is your defense still struggling. You retained most of your coaching staff from last season. And as we said on the Sunday morning show with me, James Football Talk with Bo, is that for the Bengals, they've been a struggling defense, and they've retained most of their coaching staff. And I do believe that's part of it too, with the Bengals defense and why they struggled in recent years, because it's pretty much you play as hard as you practice. And now we don't know what's actually going on in that Bengals room, in that defensive practice room, but we can tell by the way they play on the field, they're not being pushed hard enough in practice. And this continues to happen repeatedly, regardless of who they draft. Obviously, that might be a sign that leadership-wise, the vision for the defense and the preparation needs to change. But as long as they still got the same coaching staff, I don't think that's going to happen. So for Dexter Lawrence, currently, the Bengals are a better team than the Giants currently. At least with Burrow, there is the possibility that the Bengals could make a playoff run if he can stay fully healthy. But We know another problem with that is that Bengals offensive line. It seems like every other year, sadly, Burrow's been due for an injury. Unfortunately, that's been a trend that's followed. But here's the thing now that you got, for the Bengals, you got Dexter Lawrence, which is a nice replacement for Trey Hendrickson. But what about your secondary, your linebacking room, your offensive line, which has been a struggle for a decade now, going back to Andy Dalton being their quarterback? Perfect example. They ignored offensive line and drafted John Ross. Oh, boy. But, yeah, if there are any Bengals fans who catch this, the less said for them, the better. But the point is, while Dexter Lawrence gets a new home and it's better on paper, a better situation than the one he left, the Bengals still have their own holes to fill, and I don't think this necessarily solves their problems. For the Giants, there is a potential win out of this. Potentially, because they got the 5th and the 10th pick now. Meaning that if they make the right move, if they draft the right guys, maybe go one, you draft an offensive lineman, maybe you draft someone on the defensive side, or maybe what you do is you get a receiver early, then you go and draft an offensive lineman with the 10th pick, fill that void, and then start to build the defense in the other rounds. There's multiple ways the Giants could go with this. So there is, at least for them, the potential to benefit from the number 10 pick. But with the Giants' recent history of draft blunders for the most part, it's hard to give them the benefit of the doubt, because over the past decade, most of their early picks have either been insane reaches such as Daniel Jones or a struggle to pan out. Now, they've had their share of hits too, such as Saquon Barkley, but he ultimately left for a division rival and helped them win a Super Bowl. So even if they hit with 1 or 2 picks and they're missing with most of the picks, what difference is going to make? But we'll have to see if maybe the Giants with a new head coach, if Harbaugh has enough influence and say to convince the Giants to draft differently. We got to wait. We will find out come Thursday night. Well, we see what happens. What do the Giants do with the 5th and 10th picks? So that's going to be an interesting to see what happens. But since we're on the subject of draft picks, it's time to switch gears. This is the last, since I said in the intro, it's the last episode of the 3-Point Blitz before the draft. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a full first round mock draft simulator. So we're going to do, that's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to do a full one and actually do a full first round mock draft for all 32 teams. So I'm going to do all 32 picks of the first round. I'm going to share the screen. So here we go. So I'm going to select all, do one round. And here we go. All right, so here we go. Let's get this bad boy started. The Raiders are on the clock. We know what they're doing. Fernando Mendoza. You have to draft the quarterback. He's the best quarterback on the board. You got the number 1 pick. It's a no-brainer. Now for the Jets, this is interesting here because I gotta wonder. Obviously they need a lot of help, but considering there isn't really a top prospect quarterback outside of Fernando Mendoza, it might be smarter for the Jets to build the other positions up, then maybe come back in the mid-rounds and draft a quarterback that could develop better, if at least has a chance to, with better talent. So for the Jets, you got wide receiver, edge, linebacker, or offensive guard. Look at what's available. You do have David Bailey, Averell Reese, Carnell Tate. You have Jeremiah Love as well. I could see the Jets. I mean, we know the Jets have in recently been a defensive-heavy first draft team. I could see them doing that. And then the Cardinals are in a similar position where they need a lot of help too. Kyler Murray went to the Vikings on a 1-year deal. Remains to be seen what he does there. So for the Cardinals, interesting one. They could go Arvell Reese, Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Love, Sonny Styles, Francis Mogoa, Ruben Bain Jr., Caleb Downs. A lot of interesting choices. And for a team like the Cardinals that needs all the help they can get, it would be the smart thing, just take the best player on the board. If it is Avril Reese as it is in this mock draft, take him. If it ends up being David Bailey in the real draft, take him. Now you got next the Tennessee Titans, a team that needs all the help they can get. They need a wide receiver for Cam Ward to throw the ball to. It makes most sense in this case. Go get Carnell Tate of Ohio State. If he's on the board, take him, run with it. Now, for this one, this might be a little bit of a shocker, but this is something I could realistically see the Giants doing too, because the Giants might be worried about Cam Scadaboo's life shelf with him being injured. With his injury, they know he suffered a serious injury, and they know his style of play, while exciting, may not be the best option in the long term. So I could see them possibly going and maybe getting a Jeremiah Love as a panic move, but we'll have to wait and see. I would not be surprised if that's something that the Giants did. So I'm going to go with this curveball, say the Giants take Jeremiah Love. Now watch it actually happen. Now moving right along, you got the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns, for the most part, y'all pretty good on defensive side of the ball. They need offense. Anybody. They need wide receivers, offensive guards, something. And with Francis Magoa being the best tackle in this scenario, I'll say the Browns take him, try to give Shedeur some protection, and now you got the Saints next. Hold on a second. Excuse me. All right, the Saints need help. It's too. It says, Washington. Sorry, I was looking at the Saints. I bet, but Washington Commanders, they need to get young, basically. You got, and you could go an offensive tackle too, because you had Jaden Daniels got injured, so obviously you're going to need some protection there. They could go a wide receiver or a running back. I'm going to say they go on the offensive side of the ball in this case. And they try to pair him up with, let's see, Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State. That would be an interesting pickup. Now, you got the Saints in this one. Saints are up. They need edge, wide receiver. I could see the Saints maybe getting this running back in the second round, because they know Kamara is not on his last legs. They do need offensive guard. I'm going to say the Saints in this one. I'll say the Saints in this one go and take Mansour Delane from Louisiana, which would be a fitting pick. And now you got Kansas City. Oh, this is where the going gets good, because you got Mahomes, you got Kelsey back, you got Kenneth Walker. You need to build up the offensive line or the defense. You could go Jermod McCoy. I could see that. But then now you got the Giants are on the board again. They already took. And I'm going to say this is where they go and get Spencer Fanu, an offensive lineman. Now the Dolphins are on the board. They need all the help. You brought in Malik Willis. You got to surround Malik Willis with talent. You got to go and get him some receivers, tight ends, something. This is where they go. Say they go for Mekhi Lemon there now. You got the Cowboys. Obviously, this is pro defense heavy draft. Saying this one, they're going to go Ruben Bain Jr. from the Hurricanes, get themselves an edge. Now you got the Rams are on the board. The Rams are trying to go. I'd see the Rams in this case on Sonny Styles going now. The Ravens, the Ravens are in a tough hole. They lost a lot of guys. Oh, they need a lot of help on the offensive line. I'd say in this case, it's the offensive guard. Let's say the Ravens go and grab Loane from Penn State. And now you got the Buccaneers are next on the board. They're going to probably see the Bucs looking for a defensive guy in this one. They're going to because they need a lot of help on the defensive side of the ball. They go Gerald McCoy. Then you got the Jets are back again. All right. Who's the Jet? Who's the Jet? Well, the Jets already got David Bailey, and they need a lot more help, so I'll go. I'll say the Jets look toward the offensive side of the ball. They're going to go. This is where they go and grab Sadiq out of Oregon, give themselves a tight end. And now we're going to get the Detroit Lions. This is an interesting one. Their offensive line got banged up later in the season. They need help. I'd say they're going to go. If Monroe Freelings out of Georgia's on the board, they take him. Or they go Caleb Lumu. And now you get the Minnesota Vikings. For the Vikings in this one, obviously defense is their main need. And they do need a running back for the long term. So it's kind of interesting in this one where they could go defense. I'd say the Vikings probably going defense. Say they get that out of there. Peter Woods out of Clemson will be their guy. And now we're already up. We're set at pick number 19. The Panthers. At this point, if you're the Panthers, really, the smart thing to do is go get a wide receiver. Go get Omar Cooper Jr. Get a guy off the national champions who's going to be considered a late first-round prospect. Go get him. And now the Cowboys are back on the board. Let's see. Because I could see Kansas. I'm realistically seeing Kansas City making the trade here with Dallas possibly. I could see Kansas City. Well, Hollywood Brown. Wait, they still got Hollywood Brown listed on KC's roster. Wait a minute. That don't make sense. Hold on. Who could I see? I'm trying to think. Who's a low guy I could see Kansas City trying to trade? Looking for a lower, like a guy that's on the team but isn't. Wait, they got Nick Bolton listed twice. Ugh, they got this whole thing. Oh, this whole thing's a clustered. Wait, what? Let me try that again because I could see Kansas City possibly. Oh, yep, and here we go. So I see a pick swap here. So Here we go. So Kansas City is now on the board. And with this one, they'll go with Monroe Freeling, try to get Mahomes his protection. And now the Steelers are on the clock at number 21. It's an interesting situation. And this is where I go. They fill in that safety void, get Dylan Theinman out of Oregon. And now you got the Chargers on the clock. I'd say they need an offensive lineman bad. And they do need some help on the defense, but I could see Harbaugh going for build that defense. Now it's the Eagles' turn. All right, here we go. You already had your top gun from Penn State off the board. You lost Monroe Freeling from Georgia. So now I've always said Eagles should stick with an edge. And in this case, so go with Keldrick Falk out of Auburn. And now the Browns are back on the board again. So, all right. You got Shador his protection. Now, try to get a receiver. Got to build, like I said, build the offensive side. Get the best, at this point, get the best receiver on the board if you're the Browns in this situation, because you need that help. And now you got the Bears are on the clock. The Bears, obviously, they need help with defense. This is where they go and get Akeem Mesidor, bring him in, fill a void on defense, because that was not one of your strong points of the season, and you want to bolster them. Now, for the Bills, you're under Joe Brady. You need a guard. I think you really got to build up that defense a little bit stronger if you're them. You got to. You do need edge. You do need. In this case, they go get Caden Proctor. And now the 49ers are on the clock. All right. You gotta wonder. It could see them going with a edge or a linebacker, because you got to wonder how much longer is Fred Warner going to be there. And also, they do need some help on the defensive side of the ball as well. Look at who's available on the defensive side. Need offensive tackle. Well, they do need help on their defense, especially after that playoff, because that was their Achilles heel against the Seahawks all season long. So I'd say they want to go get an edge in Zion Young. And plus, with Nick Bosa, you don't know, with his injury history, how much longer is Nick Bosa really going to be an asset for the Niners? That's a big question. Now, for the Texans, in this case, I'd say that, look, their offense is already set. You got to go get someone, either a wide receiver or a tight end. Try to get somebody. I'd say go get Denzel Boston out of Washington. Try to get somebody for CJ Stroud to throw the ball to an elite. Try to hopefully it helps take the pressure off of him, because that's something you surely need. Now, here come the Cowboys. This was their pick. Now, they need, like we said, I see them going with a defensive heavy approach in the draft. I'm going to see them going with Brandon Seiss from South Carolina, because they need help on that defense, like I said. Now, here we go, Miami. You do need help on that defense, too. You also got, see how Miami's come along. Miami, they got a wide receiver now. At this point, I'd say they go with Blake Miller, because you need help. Now we're down to the final two picks of the first round. For the Patriots, they do need a wide receiver. Let's just say that they're trying to build up. They probably do need some help on, but they really, I'd say the Patriots actually need offense more so. I don't know. You could probably wait, though, too. Maybe go CJ Allen out of Georgia and then come back, because They're not projected to go far. Now the final pick of the first round, the Seattle Seahawks. This could be where I see the Seahawks maybe going to get Kenneth Walker's replacement. And I could see them maybe reaching a little bit, grab Mike Washington Jr. But they also do need offensive line. I'll see them going to take Max Iancora out of Ohio State. Now there's the mock draft right there. Now we're going to take a look. So we got team grades. Oh, the Cowboys get an A in this one. Full mock draft results. So that's it for this. So that's our final mock draft. How much of it will happen? Well, we'll wait and see how much of it really happens. So we're gonna find out. So that's the last run through of my mock drafts before the real NFL draft happens itself. We'll see how much of it really happens, how much of it doesn't, but ultimately it is a mock draft. It's for fun. I try to be as realistic as possible, but we'll find out over time, come draft time, if that's actually the case or not. But for sure, one thing I will confidently say, I do see the Cowboys going on the defensive side, Kansas City, maybe trying to trade up to the late first round, get some help for protect Mahomes next season. I could see Miami trying to get what would be the smart thing to go try to get a receiver or an offensive lineman, try to build around Malik Willis, help him out. Tennessee, try to get a receiver for Cam Ward to throw to. Houston, we'll see what they do, but I do believe Houston should go get another weapon and try to get a reliable weapon for CJ Stroud so he doesn't have as much pressure to perform well in big games, because that's where he falls off when the pressure's on. But ultimately, time will tell what happens. We'll have to wait and see. I believe Eagles could either go, if your offensive guard out of Penn State that's hyped up in the mock draft is available, take him. If not, go fill that void on edge that Jalen Phillips left, or get a linebacker to replace Nakobe Dean. But time will tell on that one. But with them, ultimately, this is still the 3-point blitz. We still have the NBA playoffs going on right now, and we'll definitely talk about that in a minute. But first, going to take a quick break. Then I'll be right back, and we'll talk about the NFL. We'll talk about the NBA playoffs, a little bit about LaMelo Ball, Doc Rivers, and more in just 1 minute. So stay tuned, folks. Your boy will be right back. And I'm back, folks. After a quick break, I am back. And before we dive into the NBA playoff talks, a few friendly reminders. Later tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, your guys' favorite show, Everything on the Table, is back after a 1 week episode going sole, doing tier ranker and Riot comedy reactions, and then a 1 week hiatus last week. It is back. This time, Agent Warrior will be back, and it will be me and Agent doing our thing as usual, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with Everything on the Table, it's not just sports talk, it's all talk. Any big movie news, celebrity news, countdown list, memories, all that will be on the table tonight. So make sure to tune in later. And also, come April 25th, I got a special present for Steez Nation. Yes, I'll be dropping that on April 25th, which is my birthday. And that is my gift to Steez Nation this year. So I'll give a little behind the scenes look about my childhood, about starting off as a YouTuber, some of my favorite memories that stand out to me throughout my YouTube journey. I'll be putting that together in a little mini documentary style. So that will be coming up soon. And then Everything on the Table later tonight. But now it's time to get back into the discussion because it is the first official week of the NBA playoffs. We do have some other news in the NBA we want to get to before we dive into the playoff. So we got this almost ended up being the rant of the week, but we'll kind of talk about it briefly. So LaMelo Ball. We know last week there was the incident where he tripped Bam Adebayo. Now, do I believe LaMelo Ball was trying to take Bam out? No, I don't believe that's what he was trying to do. However, as pointed out on the Pat McAfee show after that playing game, LaMelo does have a history of reaching his hands out and trying to trip people. But this time, unfortunately, it led to Bam Adebayo getting injured, and LaMelo Ball, who I don't believe was trying to injure him, now he has to live with the fact that he inadvertently injured someone. And LaMelo was fined $60,000 for this incident. But because, like we said, we saw a clip of this happening before in a Heat game a few years ago between the Hornets and Heat, we know there's a pattern in history with this guy, unfortunately. So it's kind of a shame. And it's a shame because LaMelo Ball is a really talented player, though. But now that you think about it more and more, unfortunately, his own biggest burden is his impulsive decision-making. Because LaMelo has, throughout his career, made some poor impulsive choices. Now, some of this I don't really care for personally, but these are examples to illustrate my point. So, yeah, this is going to be a paradox of me saying I don't really care too much of his personal life, but this gets across my point. You remember back in 2021, he was rumored to have a fling with an adult entertainer named Tiana Trump. Now, it turns out that was just more of a quick thing. Eventually, he moved on from her. I don't know, because I know LeVar was trying to tell LaMelo it was a bad idea, that she fit more the stereotype of an adult entertainer. Fortunately, no harm came out of that. But then you've also had his reckless driving. Remember, there was the incident where he crashed his fancy custom car And did you see what he did to that car just a few short months ago? And that's not the only incident with reckless driving. There was the other incident where he supposedly accidentally stepped on a kid's foot. Now, that was a tit for tat. The kid was with his mom. The kid tried to jump in front of LaMelo's car for an autograph, which I think was poor decision there. And the parents should have been, particularly his mom was with him, should have pushed to say, no, don't jump out in front. At the same time, LaMelo, now that we know he has a history of bad driving, you could say he played a role in that too. So unfortunately, LaMelo Ball's impulsive decision-making, particularly with driving or reaching out for dirty plays whenever he feels like it, does have negative consequences in the long haul. So it's a shame, as talented as he is, and he is a really good player, he stepped up, had a good season, and he had a good game too against the Heat outside of tripping up Bam Adebayo and that being the main talking point. Let's not forget he had 30 points. Him, Con Kneppel, even Kobe White had a pretty good game. So the Hornets have talent. I just hope at some point LaMelo Ball, something gets in his head. And I'm starting to think maybe they should, maybe the NBA should, I don't think they're going to do it, but they should look into some of his decision making, give him a light slap, give him a slap on the wrist, short suspension to kind of give him a sign of LaMelo. Some of your recent behaviors drawn a concern. The car crash, the tripping up of Bam Adebayo, while not intentional, this is the second time something like this has happened. And unfortunately, it got somebody injured, LaMelo. We're doing this to give you the heads up. You got to step back a little bit. But hey, you know what? But I don't think it's going to happen. That's the reality of the game. And also in other news, it is official now. I'm not going to talk about this long because I already talked about this in depth last week. Doc Rivers is retired as a head coach, and he's moving on to other pastures. He says he wants to spend time with his grandkids, which at this point in his life, I'd say all power to you. And I wouldn't know from experience, but when I heard a lot of people who've been both a parent and a grandparent say grandparenting's the most fun part. If that's the case, Doc Rivers, go have fun. Enjoy some time with your kids. If you ever decide, grandkids or your children, your grown kids and your grandkids, enjoy that time. I'll just say this real quickly. His legacy to me is when expectations are low, he's a great overachiever. When expectations are high, he's a great underachiever. That to me is the best way to summarize Doc Rivers' legacy in an honest but also respectful manner. So I'm not going to dive into that. I already did that last week. So moving right along, let's actually talk about the NBA playoffs itself. That's the part people are here for. Let's dive into it. All right, so we got it right now. It is the opening round of the NBA playoffs. And as stated in the intro for this episode, we're going to talk about, so let's start off with last night. You had the Atlanta Hawks and New York Knicks game. Now, I did catch the game. I actually caught the game up till about the third quarter. So I caught most of the first half, a little bit of the second half. But throughout the first half, the Knicks mostly controlled the game. And when they were in cruise control early on, it looked like Knicks were going to go up 2-0. But then in the fourth quarter, everything started to turn around. All of a sudden, the Hawks outscored them. And voila, your final, Atlanta Hawks 107, Knicks 106. In the fourth quarter particularly, you had the Hawks outscore the Knicks 28-15, and that played a huge role in their 1-point victory. And as our Coop pointed out in the comments, we had an unlikely hero for the Hawks in game 2 at Madison Square Garden. That's right, CJ McCollum, who we've seen some flashes of brilliance from time to time. We saw it on the Pelicans. We saw it also on the Blazers. We saw those flashes of brilliance. And we saw it again last night, dropping 32 points. He was 5 for 7 from the free throw line, and he was integral, and he played a huge role in that second half comeback and evening the series at 1 apiece. Now, you got game 3 in ATL back for home for the Hawks. That's a huge momentum setter for them headed into game 3. because it looked like, again, they were getting cooked. You saw Jalen Johnson didn't have a great night last night. In the first half, he had 4 points. All 4 of them were free throws, and he finished with 17 points. So he had 6 field goals. He had 12 points from the field. The rest were free throws. So he didn't have a great night, but fortunately, CJ McCollum stepped up and helped the Hawks when needed, which is also a key. That's why it's important to have depth and have players who can step up, particularly role players. Now, your role players don't have to step up and play great every single game. However, it really helps, and it can make a huge difference when you got those guys that can step up when needed to. All those great teams throughout history have had it. You had the Chicago Bulls certainly had it. You had guys like Scottie Pippen could help out when needed to. You had Steve Kerr could hit some of those clutch shots from time to time as a role player. You had a guy like Ron Harper who helped out and do the dirty work on defense. Then the second go around, you had Rodman, was the king of the rebounds and also the king of technical fouls. But the point is, all these great teams throughout history have had some guys that could help out. Even the Lakers, you had guys like Derek Fisher on those Kobe teams who could help out and play an integral role. Pau Gasol was phenomenal in the paint during the 4th and 5th championships. You also had Robert Horry during the Kobe and Shaq years. But yeah, I could go on and on with that. But back to the subject here. So shout out to CJ McCollum. Great game. From the Knicks side, Brunson had a solid game. He did have 29 points. But also you had Karl Anthony Towns was solid with 18. But outside of that, the rest of the roster wasn't that great. It's just that the Knicks ultimately took the wheel off the gas pedal in the fourth quarter and let the Hawks come back. And even Arku now has the Hawks winning the series, which it could happen because let's be real, folks. The last 2 playoffs, let's not forget, the Knicks have lost series they were favored to win, both time against the Pacers. Second round, 2024. Knicks were the favorites. It was supposed to be Knicks-Celtics conference finals. Got Pacers-Celtics instead. Knicks were supposed to go to the NBA Finals after knocking off the defending champs as of last year's playoffs. And guess what? And Arku's confirming that he's believed in the Hawks the entire time. And like we said, we thought it was going to be Knicks Thunder, but the Pacers got the upset. So the Knicks have lost series they are favorites to win. Now, the good news for them is they don't got to worry about the Pacers, but considering the Hawks are similar to last year's Pacers, as in they got hot at the right time late in the season and can carry that momentum into the playoffs. Oh, yeah, there's a good chance the Hawks could win this. Similar, or another example, the Lakers with the Pau Gasol trade, they got hot. Or even the Lakers a few years back. In 2023, they got hot and made a run to the Western Conference Finals. But other games you also had, the Cleveland Cavaliers now go up 2-0 on the Toronto Raptors. And I'll say this about the Cavs. I've noticed this trend over the past couple of years, and this is what I'm saying. First round, the Cavs are clutch in the first round. We've seen this 2024 when they came back in Game 7 against the Magic. We saw this last year when they wiped the Miami Heat off the face of the relevant basketball surface. And now we're seeing so far they're up 2-0 on the Raptors. I'd say this first round in the Donovan Mitchell era, Cavs are contenders. But then after the first round, that's when trouble starts to rise. And we're seeing a similar trend here now with them going up 2-0 on the Raptors. And for the Raptors, I'll say this. Well, they have a talented roster. They're just not championship material at the moment. Not with the guys they currently have, because it's a shame because you got a little bit of a likable underdog team over there. You got guys like Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes and company. But when you look at their roster, RJ Barrett is another. You have Jacob Poeltl. Who do you really have, though, that's a true clutch player that can deliver for you and get you to the promised land? Which superstar do the Raptors have currently? When you look at it currently, they don't have that superstar. And that's what the big difference maker for the Raptors come playoff time is you got to go up against teams such as the Cavs who say what you want to say about them, but you do have Mitchell and Harden who are still good, consistently good regular season players. And like I said, first round, they're the kings of the first round. But then you also got, in just the Eastern Conference in general, you got teams such as the Knicks who have Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns. You got the Celtics, won the finals 2 years ago. They still got their main two guys. They still got depth with guys like Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, and Derek White and company. And then you also had the Detroit Pistons who, if Cade Cunningham's healthy, they could make a run. But, well, that's something else I'm going to get to in a second because the Orlando Magic had themselves a little upset. But in this series, the Cavs are just the better team at this moment. And plus the Cavs, you still got Evan Mobley still there. And Mitchell and Harden. Yeah, they're not the guys you want throughout the entire playoffs, but usually first round, that's your best bet with them. And for the Raptors, a team that has a lot of good players but doesn't have a superstar that can truly lead, yeah, your odds are numbered in the playoffs in this one. And then also, so you got to consider that, but crazy enough, we had game one between the Pistons and Magic. The Orlando Magic shocked the Detroit Pistons in game one, and they pretty much controlled that game too. So now that's going to raise some questions about how did the Pistons do in this series? Because Orlando Magic all of a sudden came out game one. They controlled the tempo of the game. They gave the Pistons a tough fight, and ultimately they came out on top with the W. You had that whole, and even Cunningham, to be fair, Cunningham was coming back after a long delay, so maybe he was a little rusty. The team just needed to take time to get the chemistry back, but it's only one game. After all, the Pistons consistently did dominate the Eastern Conference, so I'm not counting them out just on game one. And yes, credit Boncaro. Boncaro had a good game, had 23. You had Desmond Bane 17, Wendell Carter 17. You had Jalen Suggs at 16. And then for the Pistons, Cunningham did go out there and have 39 and have a really good game, but the team needs to get its chemistry going back together. You still got Tobias Harris, Azor Thompson, Jalen Duren. Obviously, these guys need to step up a little bit more because the Magic, as you clearly see between Bane, Carter Jr., Boncaro, Wagner, they outplayed the Pistons as a team, and that was a huge difference maker in game one. But we got game two tomorrow. We will have to wait and see what happens on that one. So we can put that behind us, and we'll just see if they bounce back. But speaking of games, you also got tonight, but let's tonight's schedule. You got game two, Sixers Celtics. Game one, basically, the Celtics had the Sixers number. They completely outmatched them. You could see the Sixers were mainly at Maxey and Edgecombe. Maxey did his best in that game, but clearly he was pushing too hard to carry that team by himself. And Boston just had their number, which was expected. It basically looked like a continuation of Game 7 of 2023 Eastern Conference semifinals with updated rosters is what it felt like in terms of the way the game played out. Once again, the Boston Celtics had the Sixers number. Tonight at 7, we'll see if it goes any different. You got the Blazers-Spurs game 2 coming up tonight, and we'll have to see we'll see how that one goes. And you saw Wembanyama certainly delivered in game 1, and that's good. If that's a preview of what we're going to get from him, then guess what? Oh, boy. That's going to be, it's going to be interesting. The Spurs are going to be a team to mess with. And so far, they certainly look like it. They certainly look like it. And speaking of Wemby, just a quick side note. It just came out earlier. Victor Wembanyama is officially the first unanimous defensive player of the year. And it was a no-brainer in this case, folks. Wemby Just the best all-around. If you want to talk best all-around player on both sides of the ball this season, on both sides of the ball, it was Wembanyama. I'm not saying he's going to win the MVP, but if you're talking about a hybrid of excellent offense and excellent defense, it was Wemby. And clearly he was going to be the unanimous defensive player of the year because Wemby's a bit of a gem we don't get as much of in today's era. We don't get those Dikembe Mutombo-like presence on defense too much nowadays. And for Wemby, who is a machine on the defensive side of the ball, up yours, Rudy Gobert. That's what a real defensive player of the year looks like, and that's how a real star performs. So congrats to Wemby on that. But the Spurs did win game one. Wemby just continued where he left off, showing those wimpy Americans what playoff basketball really is. Point. And we'll see. He's looking to continue that in game two. And also tonight, we got the Rockets and Lakers. I got to say this. Say what you want to say about him, but LeBron James delivered in game one. And he did his thing. I mean, a shorthanded Lakers team, he went out there. LeBron James, he didn't have the greatest performance, but he did drop 19 points. He had 13 assists. He did have 2 steals and a block, and he was certainly making his presence known. Now, Luke Kennard was the lead scorer, so we got to give them props. Between LeBron being a menace on both sides of the ball and between Luke Kennard scoring most of the points for the team, the Lakers had a really good surprise game one without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, which was the real shocker. And you look at what happened but also the Rockets were short KD, and they were stuck with Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith Jr., Alfred Sengun, Reed Shepard, guys who based off last year, based off that, they're not ready to compete come playoff time. We saw they got dismantled by the Steph and Jimmy Butler-led Warriors, and this year, going against the Luka and Austin Reeves-less Lakers, and they still get beat. Now you got to wonder. Now you see why they traded for KD, because they wanted that veteran that was there that could be a difference maker. But I will say this. Well, I still got to give LeBron credit for this. While he may not be the same player he was 5, 6, 7, 8 plus years ago, he still, even for a guy in his 23rd season, can still have those flashes of brilliance. And he at least knows what good team basketball is. Whether you like him or not personally, hey, he did out there. He did a good game one. Now, we'll see if the Lakers can keep that going come game two tonight and so on, because they're still going to be shorthanded, though, without Luka and without Austin Reeves. And the longer they're out, the more troubling it is for the Lakers in the long term, because while they did win game one against the Rockets, that's not sustainable in the playoffs, especially in a loaded Western Conference where you still got teams such as the Nuggets and Timberwolves, who are now tied at 1 game apiece after game two. After game 2 last night, the T-Wolves got themselves a big win. And this is why they say you can never count the T-Wolves with Anthony Edwards leading the way out. Because we saw it. Last year, they made a surprise run to the conference finals. The year before that, made a bit of a surprise run to the conference finals. At this point, T-Wolves beating the Nuggets to even up the series is not a surprise, folks. We've seen this drill before. And Julius Randle having 24 points. He was pretty solid too. Rudy Gobert, well, he was just there last night. We'll put it that way. He did get 7 rebounds and 2 steals, so he helped a little bit, but for the most part, it was the Ant-Man show, with Julius Randle being this good assist number 2 guy, if you will. Jokic had 24. Jamal Murray led the way and played solid with 30 points, but the rest of the team, guys like Aaron Gordon, Tim Hardaway Jr. was solid, but Spencer Jones and those guys it just wasn't enough. But it is 1 game, though. But I'll give the T-Wolves credit, and I'll say this. out of the Western Conference series, that's a really intriguing series right there. And I'll say the best opening round series of the bunch because Lakers Rockets, it looks great on paper, but with the Lakers being shorthanded, it's not going to be as enticing as you may feel it is on paper. And then you also got Phoenix and OKC. We know who clearly is the better team. While I give the Suns credit on one front, they made a surprise run making the playoffs. You had guys like Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks did better than expected, playing alongside Devin Booker. Yet Mark Williams has been pretty solid for them as a role player. So I give the Suns credit, but they're going against the OKC Thunder. It ain't happening. Best case scenario, they lose in 5 games instead of getting swept. Best case scenario for the Suns. I mean, granted, I give them props. They made it this far, but OKC Thunder are way too good at this point. And let's face it, they're going back to the conference finals, all right? Barring freak injuries to SGA and Chet Holmgren that both put them out, they're going back to the conference finals at least. Spurs and Blazers, I like what I've seen from Deme. The Spurs are just way too good at this point as well. And like I said, Lakers Rockets is missing some of the intriguing players that help that series. Out west, it's T-Wolves and Nuggets so far. That's the most intriguing series thus far in that on that side of it. In the Eastern Conference, I'd say at this point the most intriguing has got to be Hawks and Knicks, especially after what we saw last night. And then Pistons and Magic. Well, game 1 did provide a nice surprise with the Magic winning, but we'll have to see if that continues or not. That's going to be the key question. But it is still early in the playoffs. Anything can happen, though. Anybody can win or lose these upcoming games. And sadly, hopefully this doesn't happen, but realistically, we know injuries can happen at any time. And the last time the Sixers had an upset playoff victory, let's face it, there was the asterisk on that because of D Rose's injury. And that's why even as a Sixers fan, I've never openly celebrated that series win because we all know the real reason the Sixers won that series. But with tonight and going in game 2 against Boston, yeah, I don't see it. Give me the Celtics to win that game. Celtics are excellent at home. And even though they got the number 2 seed, I'd still say they're the best team in the Eastern Conference. And they're probably going to get the edge and come out on top with the win in this one. And then you got Spurs, Blazers. Give me the Spurs to go up 2-0. Rockets, Lakers, kind of interesting. Let me see. Do we have the official lineup yet? And as of right now, yeah, it looks like Luka. I'm going off Google AI. Hopefully this is accurate. Hopefully they didn't make mistakes, but assuming that this is accurate, we got expected Lakers projected lineup is Smart, Kennard, Hachimura, LeBron, Ayton, Luka and Reeves are still out. Rockets. Oh man, you got KD's questionable. Van Fleet is out, so KD didn't play game 1. We saw how that had a negative impact because I feel like as of now, these guys like Amen Thompson, Reed Shepard, Jabari Smith Jr., Sengun, those guys at the moment are not ready to win big in the playoffs. They're going to need KD there to give them a spark. It will be interesting to see if the Lakers win again or if the Rockets can bounce back. So I'm looking forward to that. The other 2 games are just pretty much Celtics and Spurs, pretty easy there. Give me 1 second, folks. I'll be right back. We'll continue to talk about this a little more just one. All right, folks, I'm back, and for the opening round of the playoffs, we still got to ultimately wait and see what happens. Now, for the team so far, quickly go through the biggest keys for them. The OKC Thunder for the opening round, pretty obvious. Stay healthy and you win the series. San Antonio Spurs, the same. Stay healthy, win the series. Boston Celtics, based off what we saw game one, same. Win, stay healthy, and win out. Those are pretty much it right there. For the Cavs, it's just keep the foot on the gas pedal. You already got a 2-0 lead. You got the better all-around roster. You match up better. Just keep that momentum going. For the Raptors, what they do need is they need someone to step up big, but I realistically don't see it happening in this series. Just not the way that roster is currently constructed. The Rockets, their biggest need, it looks like they do need KD in there. They need someone with experience who's seen the bright lights of the NBA Finals, who knows what it takes to perform come playoff time. They need that player on the court to help them out. For the T-Wolves, Ant-Man's just got to keep doing his thing, because when he's on his game and he's dominating, they destroy. They'll destroy people in the opening round in the conference semifinals. The biggest key for them is if they can repeat their effort the last 2 years, is that in the first 2 rounds, is they got to find a way to win in the conference finals. And then for their opponent, the Denver Nuggets, they got to find ways to slow down Ant and try to minimize his efficiency. Because if you can slow down his point totals, that can help you win more games. And also, Jokic has really got to step up his own game, too. They got to slow down Ant, and Jokic really has to step up and really perform exceptionally come playoff time. That's one of his keys right there. And for the Sixers, now for teams such as, now for the Pistons, their key is they got to get their chemistry back intact as a team after game one. That's their big thing. And for the Magic, they got a lot of talent there. They have a lot of depth on paper. They just got to play up to their potential, which is something they've been inconsistent with throughout the season. So that's right there, the key right there for the Magic. Just play up to your potential. And for the Sixers, man, realistically, I just don't see it. I mean, you would need Embiid in there to stand a chance, but even if Embiid were healthy, in a best-of-7 series, I just don't see them winning this series. They had their big three of Embiid, Harden, and Maxey a few years back against Boston, and they couldn't get it done. I just don't see it happening realistically, unless some freak injuries happen. Same to Boston. Same for the Blazers and Suns. I just realistically don't see it happening. I mean, all three teams are parallel in this way. The Phoenix Suns, Portland Trailblazers, and Philadelphia 76ers, in their own respect, exceeded expectations going into the season and made it to the playoffs. So I give them all props on that. But in their respective series, I just don't see them being able to win realistically. And I'll leave it at that. But there was something else I saw that I want to share with you guys real quickly that would actually be fun, I saw. So we're going to talk about it real quick. So let's go through it. So I saw a graphic. It's got the coolest NBA nicknames of all time. I saw it was ranked. There were 2 graphics. One ranked 1 to 10. The other ranked 11 to 20. So let's start off. So I'm going to show you guys this. We'll start off with the 22. 11 tier. I'm going to share the screen with you guys, and we'll decide which names are valid, which names are questionable entries. So you got on this one, you got so far you got number 20, Air Canada, Vince Carter. Number 19, The Truth, Paul Pierce. the Rain Man, Sean Kemp. 18, 17, Big Dog, Glenn Robinson. 16, the Joker, Nikola Jokic. 15, Mr. Clutch, the NBA logo, Jerry West. Number 14, the Claw, Kawhi Leonard. 13, the Glide, Clyde Drexler. Number 12, White Chocolate, Jason Williams. Number 11, the Greek Freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, to be fair, let's do it with the 10 through 1, then I'll decide there. Number 10, you got Dr. J, Julius Erving. Number 9, the big ticket, Kevin Garnett. Number 8, Magic, Irvin Johnson. 7, the Dream, Hakeem Olajuwon. 6, Agent Zero, Gilbert Arenas. 5, AK-47, Andrej Kalinko. Number 4, Air Jordan, Michael Jordan. 3, Slim Reaper, Kevin Durant. 2, Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant. And 1, the answer, Allen Iverson. Now, as far as the list itself goes, obviously names such as The Answer, Magic, the Greek Freak, the Joker, those are names everyone's come to know, but there are a few, particularly on that 11 to 20, I'm like, if there's some that are missing that should have been included in there. Most notably, I guess with a question mark, the Admiral, David Robinson. I mean, I looked at the list, I'm like, Air Canada, Vince Carter. I would take the Admiral over Air Canada any day, with all due respect to Vince Carter, but the Admiral was a phenomenal nickname. It's one that people still remember to this day, and that was also one of the biggest marketing ploy for David Robinson's NBA career was his nickname, the Admiral, from his time with the Navy. So leaving that off to me, man, I don't agree with that one at all. The Truth, Paul Pierce, that was an awesome nickname. He certainly earned that moniker. Remember, he came back, he got shot a few times and still ended up playing. The Rain Man, Sean Kemp, that was all right. White Chocolate, Jason Williams, that was cool. The Glide, Clyde Drexler, that was awesome. The Claw for Kawhi Leonard, I might lean more toward the Iceman, George Gervin, as a nickname over that. Or don't forget, you got also somewhere in there include King James too. I mean, to be fair, that would be another good one too. I think the big ticket, Kevin Garnett. I don't know, but it's great. I get why. I think that was a marketing decision, really, to put KG's the big ticket on there because they know, because Kevin Garnett was one of their star players, and I get that. But if you're talking coolest nicknames, I'm not going to take the big ticket over the Admiral or even King James or even AR-15, Austin Reeves, similar to AK-47 with Andrej Kurlenko. Sorry, I know I probably butchered that name 3 times out of the 3 times I tried, but you get the point. AR-15 has those AK-47 vibes as far as cool nickname goes, so I would have put that on there. The Slim Reaper. You know what? Here's a few honorable. I don't know. The Rain Man, Sean Kemp. That was all right. Big Dog, Glenn Robinson. But I feel like the Claw, Air Canada, and the big ticket are 3 I would scrap. Got to throw King James somewhere in there because that's something that's just followed by default. Even if it's on the lower end of the list. Like I said, you should have included the Admiral in the top 10 to me. For sure. That's another one that should have been in there. And even if you kind of wanted to cheat and go the Splash Brothers with Clay and Steph Steph and Clay as a duo, you could have possibly done that too. But I mean, I'm not saying anything against the Claw as a nickname, or I'm not saying anything against a name like Air Canada. If anything, Vince Carter, he's more known as half man, half amazing. That would have been a cooler nickname to put in there for Vince Carter. Or here, even if you want to go for a few honorable mentions, you could also throw Mr. Big Shot, Chauncey Billups, for what he did on the court, not in the poker room. You could also There's one name you could throw on there. He, of course, like I said, as an honorable mention as well. Maybe I would have moved maybe the big ticket Kevin Garnett more to an honorable mention, or the claw for Kawhi Leonard to an honorable mention, and put some of those other names like the Admiral and King James in the top 20. But that's just my opinion on the list. I mean, I do got to give credit, though. It is a really cool list, though. So, hey, credit to Essentially Dunk and Essentially Sports Media on IG. They did a really good job. They put together a nice list. And pretty soon we're going to get to the 2-minute recap. There is some news that just broke that I want to talk about, but also got to give credit. Also got to give brief shout out to the Hardcore Sports Network. And also, while we're at it, just a heads up, there will be another live show coming up, not for me, but immediately following the 3-Point Blitz on the Hardcore Sports Network. You're going to have the Broad Street Blitz with Cool Cat Connor and Leader Johnson, who are going just after the 3-Point Blitz. So make sure to definitely check those guys out, and I'll share this with you guys. And I'll share the link with you guys in just a second to that one. So shout out to Cool Cat Connor and Leader Johnson doing the Broad Street Blitz just days before and then there's the link in the chat right there. You can go check those guys out on the Hardcore Sports Network. They'll be live. They should be going in just any moment. So definitely check them out and show them some love over there. And then later, like I said, later tonight, me and Agent Warrior X do everything on the table after a 2-week hiatus. But before we officially go, one last segment to do. We got the 2-minute recap. We're just going to briefly touch up on some of the smaller stories that made realms in the sports world, but that I feel at least deserve a mention, at least. So without any further ado, let's dive right into it. In just a few more moments, we're going to hit it. We're going to wait till it's at an hour and 28 minutes before. So that way, when it's over, we're on a minute and an hour and 30 exactly, which is my usual goal for this. But without any further ado, folks, let's go right into it. So the 2-minute recap. It just broke earlier today that Mike Tomlin, the former longtime head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, will be on the move, and he'll be moving to NBC as an analyst. I love this move. This is an awesome move right here. Because if it were up to me, I'd scrap Jason Garrett. And no, that's not a dig at the Cowboys. I would take Mike Tomlin over Jason Garrett as an analyst any day. I mean, let's be real. You've listened to Jason Garrett on Sunday shows. He's not a good analyst. He's been there a few years and he's just not good at it. I'd be Mike Tomlin. Now, we haven't seen what he's going to do yet, but the potential's certainly there. And if you want to talk about analysts and announcers for a second, to be fair, I got to give Tony Romo props on this one. He actually is a good announcer. Jason Garrett isn't. That Sunday night crew, I'm not a fan of the current crew for the Sunday Countdown show. I feel like if they put Mike Tomlin on the Sunday Football Countdown, that'll certainly help make it more enjoyable, which is something that Sunday night Football Countdown surely needs. Because they just have not lived up to the hype of the Monday Night Football Countdown or the NFL primetime before Sunday Night Football on ESPN, and that would certainly help. Also, we got some historic news coming out of the Women's League real quick. UCLA, from the draft class, UCLA had about 5 players get drafted in the women's draft that Key in the Building did live last week, so shout out to Key in the Building. That's the most by any players for any team. And I know Lauren Betts has that feel-good story of overcoming anxiety and depression. Hopefully that will help with her marketability, and it could be helpful for the league in a few years, but we'll wait and see on that one. But what we do know for sure, all right, and our coup confirmed Mike Tomlin's replacing Tony Dungy. Oh, man, that's kind of that's a shame, because Tony Dungy was actually one of the few voices I liked on that show. I mean, I know he's unpopular with some of his beliefs, but as far as his football takes go, Tony Dungy is one of the few guys whose presence was actually good on the show. And hopefully Mike Tomlin does a really good job stepping up on there. But what we do know for sure, though, is Mike Tomlin will be stepping up on NBC, replacing Tony Dungy. The NFL draft is coming up in a few days. The NBA first round of the playoffs is still actively going. Everything on the table will be occurring later tonight. We got the Broad Street Blitz is going on, which I shared the link to on the network. And until next time, folks, it's your boy Nicky Stees signing off. Arku, thanks for stopping by, supporting the stream as always. Anyone else that stopped by, Mitch, I know he says he's always listening, even if he's not commenting. To anyone that stopped by, thanks for your support. Hope you guys enjoyed episode 56, and let's hope episode 57 is another Grand Slam episode. So until later tonight, with Steez and Agent Warrior on everything on the table, it's your boy Nicky Steez signing off. Peace.